Good evening, Morai v'Rabotai, Bruchim Abayim, to another edition of our Mesillat Yesharim Shiur. We are starting a new Perek Dalit, Bederech Kniyat HaZehirut. Now that we have spoken about the basic mentality of a healthy Jew in the world, of machovato ba'olamo, of what a person should put his focus, his goals in life, and how to approach them. Now we are starting the actual ladder of growth based on the Braita of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair in Masechet Avodah Zarah Daf Chaf, going step by step, the first of which being Zehirut, being mindful, being aware of the decisions that the person makes, the actions that the person ends up doing during the course of the day. And now, B'derech Kniyat HaZehirut. How do you become Zahir? How do you attain and obtain Zehirut? How do you gain it? Tonight's Shiur, together with all the other Shiurim this month, has been sponsored by Shea Family for the success and safety of all of our soldiers, the current situation in Eretz Yisrael and abroad, in particular for the well-being of Eliasaf ben Shoshana, Ori ben Shoshana, Adriel Haim ben Rachel Michel, and of course for the safe return of all the Chayalim and all the hostages, and for Aliyat Neshama of those fallen soldiers and people who lost their lives in this unfortunate situation, specifically Michael ben Meir, his Neshama should have an Aliyah, Amen. So, Hine ma asher mevi et ha'adam al derech klal el hazehirut. What brings a person in general terms to Zehirut, Chazal already say themselves. How does the Braita go in Masechet Avodah Zarah Daf Chaf? Amar Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair. Torah mevi'ah lidei Zehirut. Everything starts from Limud HaTorah. The greatest single mitzvah that we have is Talmud Torah. And that is what starts really the chain of growth and the process of the domino process of a person's effectiveness in a spiritual sense in their growth in life. That's how it starts. Torah mevi'ah lidei Zehirut. Now we know the Mishnah in Peah says that Talmud Torah keneged kulam. Talmud Torah is the greatest single mitzvah that we have, and the words of Vilna Gaon are famous. That the Vilna Gaon writes, not when you do Talmud Torah a whole day, a whole week, a whole month, a whole lifetime, but every word of Torah that you learn equals the whole entirety of 613 mitzvot. And the Chafetz Chaim makes a quick, back of envelope arithmetic. He says every normal speech, you could speak 200 words a minute. So imagine 200 words of 613, and you learn for a whole hour, right? Times 60. You're talking about an enormous level of spiritual reward in Talmud Torah. But it's more than that. The Gemara says, and this was a discussion in Masechet Eruvin Daf Yud Gimel, is learning Torah more important? Or is doing the mitzvot more important? After all, you learn Torah to do what? Halomed al menad lasot. You want to learn in order to know what to do, right? Because so maybe doing of the mitzvot is more important because the purpose of learning is doing. So is the doing of this a philosophical question in the Gemara? Is the doing of the mitzvot more important, or maybe the learning of the Torah is more important? And this was a debated thing for over 2 years. And the Gemara says, Nimru v'gamru. The decision, the final psak was, learning Torah is more important. Gadol ha-talmud shemevi'ah lidei ma'aseh. It's greater to learn because that is the only thing that guarantees the future of the doing. The communities, historically, that had yeshivot, chadarim, school systems of education in Torah, those are the communities that prospered in Yiddishkeit. And those communities who didn't have it, look, imagine, for instance, the Persian community, who were the most glorified community. The Talmud was written in Iran, in Bavel, which was part of the Iran, the Markut Paras, as the Maran Chida writes. Right? Many tremendous things happened there. And until about 100, 150 years ago, everybody was frum, everybody was learned, everyone was dedicated to Torah. And a system of education came about from the French Jewry, and because people were poor and this was providing them with tremendous availabilities that was not available otherwise to them, they all, simple people, they thought, this is Jews, they got to be educate our kids, especially because until then the education was only for royal family and so on. So everyone wanted their kids to have better opportunities, and they enrolled them there, and in one short generation they knocked out all the roots of 2,500 years of dedication to Torah. Torah mevi'ah lidei zehirut. When you learn about something, even if you're learning 2 halachot a day, even if you're learning but consistently, when you're learning day in and day out, v'hagita bo yomam v'layla, right? The Gemara discusses this in 2 places. We had this already together in Masechet Brachot Daf Lamed Hei Amud Bet on page 35. The machloket between Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of Zohar HaKadosh, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and Rabbi Ishmael, whether or not it's mutar for a person to work, and how they work, how much of each, and so on. And the same Tanaim, they debate also about the level of learning and the amount of hours, so to speak, in Masechet Menachot and Daf Tzaditet. So every moment that you have, according to Rabbi Ishmael, you should be learning, right? And Rabbi Ishmael is the one that says you should be working. But every time that you have, because Torah is the one that brings a person to the awareness, as the greatest guarantee that the person is going to be constantly growing in their awareness of what we call zehirut. So Torah mevi'ah lidei zehirut. And that part already Chazal tell us. The Gemara says it. But says the Ramchal, I want to specify something over here. Vehu ma she'amar Rabbi Pinchas betchilat habraita, the Gemara, the famous Gemara of Avodah Zarah, Daf Chaf Amud Bet, Torah mevi'ah lidei zehirut. Omnam, but, says the Mesillat Yesharim, al derech prat, more specifically, what part of Torah? Well, you got to sit and learn Zohar, you got to do Ohalot and Negaim, you got to do Hilchot Shabbat. So, of course, every part of the Torah has that spiritual energy. The Ramchal himself writes this in his other Sefer, Derech Hashem, in Chelik Dalit Perek Bet. I believe he writes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took the greatest shefa, the greatest spiritual energy that exists in the world, the shefa of the creation, the shefa of Bria, and he tied it as a davar seguli to one of the Taryag mitzvot, and that's the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. You tap into that, you're tapping into the greatest zchut and power and force, spiritual force in the world. The Ramchal writes something very, the Maharal rather writes something very similar also in the beginning of Netivot Torah in his Sefer Netivot Olam, and he writes, what's the pshat when we say Talmidei Chachamim marbim shalom ba'olam? Talmidei Chachamim, Torah scholars, they increase the peace in the world. So what? Rab Chaim Kanievsky, Chacham Badia, they're politicians, maybe what? But a person is sitting and learning, what does he know about world peace? And says the Maharal, no. Because when you learn Torah, you are bringing down, you're pulling down the energy that Hashem used to create the world. And the world was created in the status of Shalemut, in the state of perfection. And you're pushing the world to that, back to that state. All of the deficiencies that we have, sickness, death, wars, all those things are because of sin. Right? And Ha'arod memit, elachet memit. Right? And Yisharim belo avon. There's all the deficiencies in the world are outcome of imperfection in the mitzvot. So when you learn Torah, you're tapping into that shefa, pushing the entire universe to the state of shalamut. Hence, Talmidei Chachamim marbim shalom ba'olam. You learn another Tosafot, you just caused another soldier not to get killed, another person not to do a suicide bombing, or what not, right? That's the zechut of the. It says the Ramchal, even though that's correct by every piece of Torah, but there is a specific thing that works better for our purposes of zehirut, and what is that? Hu ha'itbonenut al chomer ha'avodah asher chayav ba'adam. Pondering again. This is the fourth time that he comes back to this, and he's going to come back to this over and over and over again in the course of the whole sefer. That you have to be mitbonen. You actually have to be an intellectual person that's willing to use his intellect, not just to put it on autopilot, not just to leave yourself the routine, mechanical, habitual way of life, but hitbonenut, thinking, pondering about what you're actually doing in life. Al chomer ha'avodah, how important it is the avodat Hashem that is put on me, right? Asher chayav ba'adam ve'omek hadin aleha, and the depth of the judgment that's going to be there. Ve'yetze lo zeh. Now he says something amazing here. Ve'yetze lo zeh min hayun b'ma'asim haktuvim b'sifrei HaKodesh. You will gain this mostly from the stories that are in Kitvei Kodesh, learning Tanakh. You know, there's actually halacha in Bet Yosef. Bet Yosef brings in Lachot Shchita out of all places, right? In Yoreh De'ah, in the beginning of Yoreh De'ah, he brings that a shochet has to be baki meutar b'chaf dalet sifrei Tanakh. Should be baki in the 24 sifrei Tanakh. And he wondered to himself, like, Tanakh? He should know all the Ilchot Shchita. That also, by the way, right? Every month they have to chazer all the Ilchot Shchita and so on. I mean, you're not a lot of rate on that, halachically speaking. But they also should know that. Why? Because Tanakh is the best Musa Sefer. Right? Binu Shenot Dor Vador. Ponder, think, the Pasuk says in Torah, about Shenot Dor Vador, all the history of the world. You learn about Tanakh, how in the era of Shoftim, the Jews, they mess up. Hashem sends the Hamas and Jihad al-Islami and Hezbollah, and then they do tshuva, Hatati Aviti Bashati. Right away Hashem sends them a shofet that beats the enemy, defeats them soundly, and they're good for 40 years until they forget again and they stray, and Hashem has to remind them again, and then they do tshuva again, and this cycle of really understanding our communal and personal relationship with Hashem and how it works in a real way. That's something that you gain mostly from Tanakh, says the Mesillat Yesharim. Umin alimud b'ma'amarei Chachamim, of course, learning the words of Chachamim that speak about these things, hameororim al zeh, that invoke in a person that sense of seriousness about musar, about taking life seriously. Now, he's going to categorize this in 3 different categories for 3 different groups of people. Not every person is made out of the same material, right? People are different. You have people who are very wise, very sharp, very in tune. Then you have people who are benoni, they are, they're regular. They're not super sharp, they're also not the lowest, they're in the middle. And then you have the lower common denominator of humanity. So says Mesillat Yesharim, for each one of these groups is going to be different. What does it for them is different. So let's study what he says. There are different levels. There are shlemei hadat, people of complete and perfect intellectual capacity. Then you have the Hamon Ha'am, the regular people, right? The most of humanity. And then you have the people who are, the lower common denominator. The people who are not necessarily very sophisticated. So says the Mesillat Yesharim, L'shlemei hadat, the top group, the highest intellectualites, tiyeh lahem ha'ara b'ma sheyitba'er lahem, ki rak hashlemut hu hadavar hara'ui. For them is when it becomes clear to them. In other words, remember we said this in the very beginning of Mesillat Yesharim, there is a difference, a clear difference, between knowing something and it becoming a reality for a person. Right? A lot of people know smoking is bad. But very few people, it's a reality for them. Everybody knows, and it's a reality for them. If you put your finger into fire, it burns you. Nobody tries it. Nobody tries it. But a lot of people try smoking or getting addicted to other things that are detrimental to their future, to their parnasa, to their shalom bayit. Why? Because there's a difference between when you have clarity or it's just raw knowledge in your mind. So for the smart ones, as soon as it becomes clear in their mind, that only the perfection of your shalemut, perfecting yourself in the world, that's what's yechamed mehem v'lo zulat. That's what's expected from you, nothing less than that. Now let me give you an analogy for this. Imagine the following. Please do. Please imagine with me together the following. Somebody comes to you tonight and shows you a short video of the people who live in Africa. They have some water. They go to the river. The tribes live next to rivers, so they have water. They could go draw water. Now there may be some bugs in the water, some sickness in the water, but it's the water, right? And they could wash things. They could drink from the water. Now you boil it. It becomes a little healthier, maybe, right? You have some fireplace that you man made, right? You have candles, so there's light, You have some basic needs of life. They're living. There are millions of them living. And then they show you the greatest mansion in the flats of Beverly Hills. Is that the fanciest place? I'm not sure, right? They show you this massive, everything is a smart home. Everything is the top technology, and the maids are there, and the cars, and the automated this and that. And it's like a king. Mamash, you're living a life of a king. And someone will tell you, in 10 years from now, you could be this, or you could be this. You could, for sure you could. It's a matter of how much work you put into it. I guarantee you could, we are going to look. We are going to look at your input, and based on your input, we will either give you this for free or that for free, or something in the middle, right? This is the spectrum. And they sign a contract with you, right? You have 5 years, 10 years. Let's make it shorter, it's easy, it's more geschmack, right? Make it 1 year, that's the most geschmack, right? 1 year. At the end of the year, we'll give you either this, or something in the middle, based on your input. What would you do? What wouldn't you do? Bemet. You'll have insomnia. You can't go to sleep. You're going to be learning Torah the whole night, until you fall apart. You're going to be chesed and this, because you know that you could get that. The distance between you and that is just putting the effort. Would you or anybody else, that is a thinking individual, settle for anything less than that mansion? No. A normal person would not settle. It says 1 year. I'm going to kill myself to get it. I'm going to do whatever is possible because I don't want to settle for something less. Worse off is if you see that you could have gotten that and you didn't. You know that feeling? You know that feeling? That you could have done it and you didn't? The worst would be if you see the guy that you look down at, he's the one that got that. That's like the worst. That's like a suicide. But there's nobody that's going to be there who's going to say, well, I don't care, I'm just going to settle for the river and the hot. Because it's too difficult. No one's going to say that. No smart person who is willing to use their intellect. Anyhow. And that's exactly what he's saying. If you're a thinking individual that's actually using their brain, you will not settle for anything less. You'll not settle for anything less. Because you could get the shalemut. You could get the best. And There's nothing worse than the lack of shalemut. Even one level down is not going to be. When this becomes clear in your mind, again, we understand this. Now, life of a person is as long as 120, but it's short. It passes very quick. We've done this exercise together a lot of times of thinking 10 years past what happens 10 years ago, and you have 6 of those, 7 of those. And depending on how old you are, you already have passed 1, 2, 3, 4 of those blinks of an eye. How much is left? It's like the 1 year that you have. And at the end of the year, they're going to look at it and they're going to give you something. What is that thing going to be? And says the Mesillat Yesharim, when you realize that the currency for that mansion is mitzvot u'masim tovim, there's no other currency in the other world. You take dollars, pound, what do you take? Shekalim? There's no currency in Olam Haba besides Torah u'mitzvot u'masim tovim. Nobody cares how much money you had up there. Nobody cares what car you drove when you go up there. The only currency that matters is like if I put you right now in, transplant you from here to, I don't know, Egypt or some other country, or from Egypt to here. You could have all the mansions in the world over there, all the money in the world over there. You come here, if you don't have dollar, sorry, you're a poor guy. You're a peddler, because your currency doesn't work here. Doesn't work here. When we go there, our currency of dollars and houses and status and cars and brand name clothes is meaningless over there. It's absolutely meaningless. So the only thing that could get you there is the Masim Tovim, Mamidot Tovot, your actions, the Shem Tov that you left, the good name. For sure you wouldn't want to diminish any of the possible mitzvot Masim Tovim that you could do here. Because every other thing you do, it's going to mean that mansion. And it's only 1 year. So it matters. Every little thing matters. When they have records, like jumping records, all these Guinness Book of Records, right? How many minutes you could hold your breath under the water. What do you think is the difference between the top person in the world and 10 people lower than him? 1 second, 2 seconds? The minutes are irrelevant, because that everyone could do. It's the seconds, the details that matters. When you jump, how many feet it is, okay, that's every top person has it. But every millimeter, the difference between the top person and the second person could be a millimeter. I don't want to miss that. By the way, the research has it that when you have the Olympic winners, the gold, the silver, and the copper, I think it is, right? The bronze, sorry, right? The second one is the saddest. And they show it to you with their pictures, right? Timer. Why? Because the third guy is happy. He's like, whew, I almost didn't make it, right? The first one is the first one. The second one always subconsciously thinks, I could have been first. I could have been first. And there's nothing that burns more than that I could have been first. Right? Again, the analogy somebody showed me, the last scene of this famous thing, I have not watched the video, but the last scene of a famous film called Schindler's List shows how after the war he has saved 1,000+ people, and they all gathered together to acknowledge that they owe their life to him. Literally, he bought them one by one from the Nazis, so they literally, it was the difference between them and the gas chamber was him buying them. And they're all there. And he comes there, they want to give him this like appreciation thing, and it hits him. It hits him in a moment of truth that he could have done more. And he starts crying and pulling his hair out. And as much as they try to say, no, you did such as, no, this watch could have been another 3 people. This cufflink could have been another person. He goes, bangs on his car, says, this could have been another 10 people. And it's unconsolable. That's the feeling of a person at the end of life. When you're 70, when you're 80, when you're 90, and you look back. And you say, this cufflink could have been another piece of Olam Haba. This car could have been the difference between that mansion and the next level. This house could have been the difference between, me working hard for trivialities. Could have been the difference. We're not speaking negative about living a proper life, a rich life even. But there's a lot of trivialities that are meaningless in the greater scale of things.
Are you referring to the reason you get those things? Like not the trivialities?
Listen, you focus your time on something, right? The more, it's like, like the Midrash says on the Pasuk, Keshemen HaTov. The Midrash says that the love of a person for HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like a cup of oil. You have a cup of fancy oil. It's filled to the top. Every drop of water that you drip inside, inevitably a drop of oil pours out. And the love of Hashem is like that. Everything other than Hashem that you love, you're taking a drop out of that cup. Every moment of life that you focus on something, it's a moment that you're not focusing on something else. Hence the importance of priorities. And I'm not saying what person's priorities should be. There are millions of different levels. For everyone is their own level, their own tug of war, their own nekudata bechira. But a fight has to happen on the nekudata bechira. There has to be a battlefield of choosing life, choosing good. And a person that's thinking, he would not want to swap this for that, a cufflink with a life. That's one of the most powerful imageries of any person's life. The end of his journey of saving people and feeling that urgency that I could have done more, and yet I didn't. Right? Says the Mesillat Yesharim, you would never want to diminish any of these tools that could get you up there, or to be light and to be loose in them. You didn't want to do that. They know that if you lax yourself in those tools to get yourself there, or if they are weak, like 2 people learn Torah for 1 hour. One of them turns off his phone, sits there at the edge of his seat, and he makes sure to get a chavruta, that he shouldn't doze off or fall asleep because he's tired of the kid last night or whatnot, and nobody could call him because his phone is off and he's not distracted. So he's learning 58 minutes out of an hour. And the other guy is coming there. He also gets there at 9 o'clock. He goes and gets a coffee and the sugar and looks for the milk. And by the time he stirs it, and it's the perfect mix, it's 10 minutes already passed. He rolls in. He sees somebody, he says, hi, how are you? How was your day? There's 5 more minutes passed. He sits there, and after 5 faithful minutes, he's falling asleep, and that's maybe he learned 15-20 minutes out of the whole hour. Those 2 people are light years apart in their outcome, in the dedication, in the productivity. You don't want it to be chalash, you don't want it to be weak. You're creating this. You want it to be firm and strong and the best that it could be. If they know that if it's weak, they're not going to be able to get to the top. They're not going to get mentioned. They're not. It's going to be diminishing and taking away. Exactly corresponding to what you lacked, it's going to lack at the end. It's a mirror image of what you do. So you could work a short 1 year and get to the top. You wouldn't want to miss an iota of what's possible to be there. בהשתדלותם. ונמצאים חסרי השלמות. חס ושלום, they would be lacking that שלמות. משהו להם צרה גדולה. That would be the greatest devastation for them, חס ושלום. ורעה רבה. על כן, לא יבחרו אלא להרבות בהם ולהחמיר בכל תנאיהם. Therefore, these people, this top level, the upper echelon of intellectual humanity, they would not want to take any risks. They wouldn't want any shortcuts. They want to increase their connection, increase their tools of gaining the Olam Haba, and be stringent in every safek. You have a safek, you have a doubt. Instead of going and looking for, is anybody Meker over here? Can you find me a kula? If there's a rabbi's will, there's a way. Maybe you could do something, maybe a little donation help, Instead of doing that, they say, is this okay according to everybody? I don't want a shortcut over here. I want to do the right thing. Those two mentalities are worlds apart. Worlds apart. The person that wants shelemut is not looking for shortcuts. So says Mesillat Yesharim, "Velo yanuchu velo yishketu." They will not rest and they will not sit. Mide'aga midavar. They're concerned. Am I doing enough? Am I getting it? Maybe what the tools that are going to get them there are going to be falling short. And this is what Shlomo Melech says in Mishlei, Ashrei Adam mefachet tamim. Fortunate is the person that's always concerned about his spiritual growth. And the Gemara says, Ha'u b'divrei Torah ketiv. The Gemara at the end of Masechet Berachot of Samach Amud Aleph, the Gemara says that is talking only about the agav, worry, anxiety about other worldly things is actually a sin. Chata'at, the Gemara says. If you're anxious about other things, you're worried constantly, you're not trusting Hashem, that's not a good thing. But Ashrei Adam mefachet tamid. But when it comes to Bahut divrei Torah ketiv, when it comes to divrei Torah, fortunate is the person that is always concerned, is always thinking, am I doing enough? Can I do more? Can I do it better? U'pershur zichram livracha. The highest level of this is what we're going to discuss later in the Sefer. It's Yirat Chet. Rab Chaim Kanievsky, in his amazing Sefer, Orchot Yosher, under Yirat Chet, he asks a very valid question. What does Yirat Chet mean? Well, you're afraid of sin? It should be Yirat Shamayim, Yirat Hashem, not Yirat Chet. What does Yirat Chet mean? And he brings countless examples that Chazal refer to Yirat Chet, not Yirat Shamayim or Yirat Hashem. And he says, let me explain to you what this means. If the Torah and mitzvot are realities in your life, that you run away from a sin like cancer, right? Well, they had the explosion in the nuclear reactor, you remember, and they didn't know. People who went to clean up there, people who were in the immediate vicinity of it, within a day or two they died because of the enormous radiation that was there. But even the broader scope was not safe, and people died. We're talking about many people, right? If you would see that, and I would tell you, I pay you $1 million to go work for 1 hour, just clean good. I have a box there, not even 1 hour, 5 minutes, right? $1 million cash for 5 minutes. Go get my bag from there and come back. Would you go? Would anybody go? Nobody would. Because it's cancer. Because it's death itself. We run away from it. That's Yirat Chet. Says Rab Chaim Kanievsky, if you realize this, the sin is exactly that. A Chet is exactly that. That's Yirat Chet. Now, you want this to come to a full circle, a beautiful circle. What does Chet mean, by the way? Does anyone know what chet means in Hebrew? Missing the target, right? Says the pasuk. There were 700 people, archers. If you haven't done archery, you don't appreciate this. It's so hard, right? It says there are 700 people, the top archers, that they would hit a hair in the air, and they wouldn't miss. But Sheva, when he goes at the end of the life of David HaMelech, and he wants to plead on the case of Shlomo HaMelech, when Adoniyahu, the other son, had announced himself king already, and she realized that this means that he's going to kill her son, and David HaMelech had promised the Malchut to Shlomo. So he goes to plead on his behalf, on her own behalf, with the direction of Natan HaRavi. He goes there and says, look, you promised, you swore to Hashem, and Ani Shlomo bincha chataim. Me and Shlomo, your son, will be chataim. What, we sinners? No. We'll be missing. Chet means missing, an opportunity. Means you could have done a mitzvah. You didn't. You could have stayed away from wrongdoing, which the Gemara says, you stay away from wrongdoing when there's temptation, and you do nothing. Nothing. You just sit there, and you are mekabel mitzvah ke'osei mitzvah. You get rewarded as though you actively did a mitzvah by staying away from avera, doing nothing. So if you did the sin, you missed an opportunity. Missing an opportunity is like cancer. It's like going into the heart of that blown up reactor and being exposed to death itself. There's no other way to say it. That's what Yirat Chet means. You realize that this is reality. See, I explained this a little bit. Maybe we could understand this. Just like there is physical reality in the world that Hashem has created, laws of nature, which are realities that we live with. Gravity is a reality that we live with, right? If you're on top of the, Empire State Building, and you see somebody is killing someone down there, and you're like, I want to save his life. Lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. It's the greatest mitzvah, and you jump down to go save the guy. What's going to happen? Well, you're doing a mitzvah, so Hashem is going to protect you, and you're going to land very smoothly on the ground and go save life, right? No. You're going to be broken to smithereens because there are rules of reality, of physical world, with you actually could exactly calculate the amount of pressure that's going to be applied to every inch of your body based on your weight, the height, and the surface that hits. That's a formula. You can actually figure it out. And the guy is going to die. Short of an open miracle. Just like you have reality in the physical world, you have reality in the spiritual world. You're Mehalel Shabbat, you just destroyed worlds up there. Literally destroyed things. Aside from the fact that you disobeyed Hashem, you also destroyed things. Right? If I come to your home, if you wake up 3 o'clock a.m., let me give you a good example for this. And you hear stuff in your living room. Right? And you go and turn on the light and see your best friend, your childhood friend and partner, your confidant, the closest person in your life is there with your safe open, and he's stealing everything you have. He has broken the cameras, he's broken the door, he's damaged the safe, right? And he is stealing everything you have. What happens at that moment? What happens is, of course, he has damaged you a few $1,000s, but your friendship with him is done, is gone. It's probably never coming back again. Right? Now imagine in a perfect world that you would be able to understand him and remedy the relationship. Say, you know what, I forgive him. He falls to your thing, he begs, he says, I'm in a bad situation, a bad thing. Just imagine you could forgive him. But he still has to pay to fix the things that he broke. That for sure he has to do. The Brisker Rav actually explains the parents' stira in the Rambam, in the beginning and end of Hilchot Tshuva. The beginning, Rambam writes, there's a process for doing Tshuva. Right? You have to do Tshuva. Charata, zivat achet, we do all the whole process, right? And if it's a mitzvah lo taseh, it's like this. If it's lo taseh has karet or mitat bedin, it's like that. If it's chilul Hashem, it's like this. It's a whole process. And then, I think in Perek Shvi'i, I think it is, Rambam writes, you know how it works? Imagine a person that's a sinner, and he is disgusting in the eyes of Hashem. Far. Completely strange. And he does tshuva. This moment he is beloved, he's close, he's wanted, he's desired. So says the Brisker Rav, basically, what happened? I thought you need Yom Kippur to pass, right? You need to tshuva. It's not immediate. So here he's saying it's immediate. Says the Brisker Rav, the most genius answer. He says no. The two things. There's the relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then there's the damage caused. The relationship HaKadosh Baruch Hu is much better than us, the human beings. As soon as the sincere tshuva that he knows in the heart of his heart, he really wants to tshuva, that moment, that instantly, the relationship is restored as though this guy never has sinned in his life once. He's beloved, he's close, he's desired, he's amazing. But he has to now go through a process of fixing those worlds that he destroyed by Chilul Shabbat and all the other hours. Because it's a reality of chet. And if a person realizes that, says, I actually could build worlds of spirituality or destroy them, chas v'shalom. So everything that I do matters. Every decision, every speech, every thought, every action. That is yirat chet. You look at a sin, it's ash, it's fire, it's cancer. You run away from it like a person runs for a life. And that's mina mishubachot shemadrigot. That's the best of the madrigot. Sheyeh adam yared tamid v'doeg ben yimtza biyado eze shemetz chet she'akvu mi'an shelmut. The person is always concerned. Am I getting it right? I don't want to have even an iota of negativity. Asher hu chayav leishtadel ba'avuro. ועל זה אמרו זיכרון ברכה, הנדס לגמרא says in Baba Batra, דף ע"ה עמוד א', מלמד שכל אחד נכווה מחופתו של חברו. Everyone is going to burn from the chuppah, from the canopy of his friend in Olam Haba. When you see that your friend that you were together, he may not have been as rich and as smart and as capable as you. And in Olam Haba you see he has a better place. He got the mansion. He got that mansion after the end of the year. Ki enze mitama kina. It's not because of jealousy. Asher tipol rak bechasarei adad. Only people of damaged intellect have jealousy. Kemo shechtov od. We're going to write about this. Ela mi penei reot atzmo chaser. Is because you see yourself lacking. You tell yourself, I could have been there. I could have had that. And I didn't. Madriga shayachol la'asiga, kemo she'isiga chavero, just like his friend did. Ve'inei al pi hitbonenut hazeh, based on this understanding, vadai shlo yimana shalem b'dato liot zahir b'masav. The higher echelon of the intellectual people, that's what keeps them running. That's what keeps them doing. Because they don't want to miss. They don't need to be pushed. They don't need to be threatened. They're running on their own because they don't want to miss the opportunity. They don't want to be chaser, lacking what they could have gained in their period of life and opportunity in this world. Mesillat Hashem, the Seif Gimel of this next piece, we will discuss and we will start learning together in the weeks to come. Chazaku Baruch.